Caroline, thanks for being with us.
Yes.
How did you come to be there on that day?
Well, I worked on the 19th floor of the cooperative building, and I went to work just like any other day. It was a bright Friday. I got there early, and at 10 a.m. we were served with our 10 o'clock tea. And about 10:30, before 10:30, we had a commotion outside, and we knew Teachers Service Commission and the banks were on strike. Mm-hmm. So we thought it was them trying to do their thing. So my colleagues ran to look on the window, and I was a computer programmer, and I was 7 months pregnant. So I stood up slowly and walked towards the window. And immediately I glued my face on the glass. That's when the blast went off. I was thrown back to the floor, and I fell on my front. That means I was laying on the baby, and so many glasses were falling on me, and the whole computer room was petitioned with glass. So as I lay there, my colleague called me Caroline, and I said, let's pray. And in a minute, the building was shaking, and she told me, Caroline, how about my children? I said, let's pray. And we said, Mungu tusaidie. And then in a little bit, she told me she could hear people walking. I said, Lillian, if you don't pull me from here, I would die. Because I couldn't see. I had a deep cut and a glass in my eye, and I had a deep cut on the other side. So she pulled me up, and I took the blouse that I had out, and I tied up my eyes so I could see. So she pulled me to the stairway where we were stepping on dead bodies. And when we got to the stairways, most of them were broke. So I remembered something my father used to tell us. If you're in a vehicle that is rolling, hold on to the mirror that is next to you. And that's what I held. And people were pushing us. And if you made a mistake of bending, you became the next casualty. So it was terrible.
I'm sorry about that. A tough moment. Can we ask about the baby?
Yes. I managed to go down to the floor. As we went, I could hear screams of people saying, help, help. But I couldn't help because I was scared that I'll be the next casualty. When I got to the ground floor, it was filled with water. That's the busted pipes. But as I walked through that, I felt the actual fact of death come out of my mind. And I ran through the Haile Selassie. And I got into a bus, a mataru, that broke on the way. So I got out, went to a vehicle that was next to that mataru. I asked a man to help us, and he said his wife worked at the embassy, and he could not help us. I said, if my baby dies, you will give me another baby. When he heard that, he said, come on in. So I went in, and my colleagues followed. Actually, one of them died afterwards. We went close to Nairobi Hospital, and it was all traffic. So I got out and ran to the hospital. There were so many people on the floor, some dead, and they stitched me without anesthesia, without gloves. It was so painful. But one of the nurses realized that I was pregnant, so they took me to a corner and put an IV on me, and they laid me on a bed that I was sharing with somebody, And when I tapped that person, he was already dead. So I took that IV down and sat on a corner. But eventually they found that I had so many cuts and they could not even get the heartbeat of the baby. And they later realized that I had a blood clot on the uterus. But we thank God, he survived. We called him Lucky Baraka. And he went through therapy because his right side was weak. So I had to take him to Kenyatta Hospital every Monday. But God helped us, and we thank him for that.
That's a moving story, and we're so glad. How is Lucky today?
Lucky is good. He was here. Yeah, he was here.
Good to hear.
Yeah, he's good.
That's good to hear. That's such a powerful story, and we'll also come back and talk about what life has been like for the last 25 years.
Right.
You know, compensation aside, which is an important issue we'll discuss, there's a lot more, obviously, that we need to talk about. Dr. Mustafa, where were you on that day?
I was in